Call the meeting to order. All seven of us are present. Item 2, at the Commissioner's request, discuss any item of concern on the regular session agenda of February the 5th, 2019.
I'm unconcerned, Bill.
Anybody?
Nope.
Hearing none, we're going to reverse 3 and 4 and start with Kurt Rogo. He has a big appointment early.
Yeah, life happens fast. My daughter's a senior, and it's senior night at OBA basketball. And I've got to, be there at 6, so to walk across the court.
The exciting colleague update.
Yeah, pardon me?
You don't want to follow the exciting colleague.
That was could have been strategic. I don't know. No, I tell you
You're
Call
losing
Lake.
time.
Yeah, I'm wasting time. All right, Call Lake is important. I got a few minutes. But this will be a quick report. As you know, yesterday was the first day of session. Stitt gave his State of the State address. I think there's a lot of people excited to see what he can produce. I think one of the big items that I recall on his list was teacher pay raise, trying to look at the regional average. So I think that's going to be a number one interesting discussion to watch. Visited with our friend Brent Kissling yesterday as well, and I can tell you firsthand, I don't think it's any secret, he's in touch with the governor almost on a daily basis, talking about his agenda, the governor's agenda for the state. So Brent's excited, his calendar's stacking up, I'm excited for him, and so hang on, I think it's going to be a good ride. What I'm going to talk about, first of all, a little bit of a revenue picture. I couldn't get a good number for you. I've been asking around. I know that we're in a surplus year for the legislature for the first time in a long time. I've heard reports of $700 million extra, but a lot of that is earmarked already. And so the legislature may have only $150 to spend extra at their discretion without the earmarks. So, the state of the state's revenue picture is pretty good. I thought I'd just give a little snapshot just on December revenue, comparing it to last December. But total income tax collections were $218 million. Well, I had a typo there, but it was $1.1 million more than last December. Sales tax collections were $10 million more than last December, or 5.6% above the prior year. Gross production tax collections, 272% above the prior year. That probably had a lot to do with the changes in the income or in the gross production tax, I'm assuming. So a big growth there. Natural gas collections, I guess they separated these into two categories from gross production, I'm assuming, but 85% above the prior year. And then oil collections, if you're reading that right, over 1,000% above. So the oil and gas industry income revenue picture has really stepped up. Motor vehicle tax collections, just a little above last year's December revenue picture, 2.4%. And other revenue collections, 41% above last December's report. And this is just the monthly snapshot. So I'm going to go over the top 5 bills that OML is targeting. They have a very narrow list this year of playing offense. These are bills that are out there on the playing the offense side. Public safety districts are out there again, and this issue, you've heard me bring this up. I want to say since Lance Cargill has been speaker, which has been, I don't know, I think he was the first one that brought this up 8 years ago, 10 years ago. So this issue is probably 10 years old and has not made it all the way. But they're going to keep on pushing, which, I don't think it's a half bad idea. Allows municipalities to vote, establish public safety protection districts. I believe there's property tax fees that would be part of this project. So I think that's the rub, is having cities take in some ad valorem taxes. This particular bill does that. At the bottom, you see another Senate bill, 471. There's a companion bill, what we call a companion bill. Similar language in the Senate, but I think OML is going to be tracking the House bill version of that at the beginning. Transportation funding. I thought this was an interesting issue, and it's one that I think strikes home with Enid, and that we would want to pay attention to. Senate Bill 400 by Paxton provides for Board of County Commissioners to construct, improve, repair, maintain any of the streets in a municipality under certain conditions related to earmarked sales tax and total population. That's just the short version of that the bill writers put together. But what this is, evidently there's a stream of revenue produced from gross production taxes to help counties repair roads where there's a lot of oil activity. So if you have a Kingfisher County where the Scoop and the Stack down there, Stevens County, they're having a lot of road repair. There's a stream of income produced from gross production taxes to help counties repair those roads. The problem is it only applies to cities where counties and cities can work together. It only applies to certain population areas. And we're too big of a city for that area, or for that issue. So this is taken right out of the bill, and you can see the correction that they're trying to make. A municipality having a population of, and when you see struck out language, that's the language being taken out. And the definition was between 5,000 and 15,000. Well, they've replaced it with 5,000 persons and greater, which applies to everyone. And so when we have an oil boom in this county or other counties around us, this might be some legislation that we would want to lean on for transportation funding.
It's not going to hurt us to do that, but that's going to help the rural communities.
Yes, and if you look, this is where county commissioners can repair roads within a municipality area using this funding stream. But our city was too big, so we couldn't get any of that gross production tax money for the transportation.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But you fix the roads in the rural areas.
Yeah.
Those people travel those roads.
You bet.
Coming to Enid, Oklahoma.
You bet. So this is probably real big to the Kingfisher counties and the Stevens counties of the world before, but now it's going to be great for everybody. Transportation, of the transportation bill, Senate Bill 824 by Senator Kim David requires ODOT to conduct economic impact studies for all new construction projects that have a primary purpose of bypassing municipalities, giving them an opportunity to weigh in before they are added to the 8-year plan. Evidently, there was an issue down in Senator David's area, Muskogee area, where they were creating a bypass around a community, and the community didn't get to weigh in at all, hardly. And so she ran, actually at the bottom there, you see Senate Bill 86. She ran that last year, and the governor vetoed it. Which is another little research. I've been kind of wanting to pull up all the vetoes that Mary Fallon has done in the eight years and see how many bills are out there. But I'm sure there's going to be a lot of repeats like this one. Senate Bill 881 by Paxton. We're seeing Paxton's name again. This would be important to us. Certificate of convenience, requiring certain telecommunications service providers seeking to access or excavate on certain properties based on a certificate of convenience and necessity to provide certain prior notification with damages eligible within violation. So the problem here is, I guess some of these telecommunications companies are coming into cities, not giving the cities prior notification and cutting water lines accidentally, in some cases where you have municipal controlled electricity, maybe some electrical lines, and just creating havoc. So that's to fix that. And this is taken right out of the bill right there, and that's to provide actual notice by mail or personal service to all political subdivisions, that would be us, within the jurisdictional boundaries. So hopefully that's an easy fix. I foresee that one to make it. Medical marijuana. So this bill, how I messed up that bill number, I don't know. I'm going to guess it's Senate Bill 1030, excuse me, and it's Senator Paxton. This is the bill that will fix anything related to municipalities and medical marijuana. So I would pull it up, look at it. Carol, this might be a good one for you to look at. There's a lot of little stuff in there. If we need to make some changes, I would certainly recommend, here in the first month of session, trying to get those out there. I predict that this will go to conference committee, and so it will be worked over quite a bit. I took out a few of the, this is actual language from the bill. Municipalities may pass ordinances to restrict or prohibit the smoking or vaping of marijuana in any or all public places within city limits. This is new language.
That will get challenged.
I have a question about that, though. I
Ask.
mean, and you may not know this, but
Yeah.
so, and I just heard this week, and it may be incorrect information, so I don't know for sure, but if anybody knows the right answer. But my understanding was that if you had a medical marijuana card and you're in a facility that allows smoking anyway, that you can smoke it there according to the Able Commission? Because the Able Commission told the owner of the facility they were lucky they hadn't been sued yet because they were making people go outside, and they told them, and Able apparently told them if they allowed smoking they had to allow it. But I don't know if that's accurate or not. So wouldn't
I don't know.
Able, I guess.
I think nobody knows at this point. I mean, there's some amount of...
What the rules say from the Department of Health or the new the new authority is they tied it to the smoking in public places law. And by tying it to the smoking in public places law, now there are not very many places where you can
Right.
smoke, but there are, but some bars allow you to smoke, and they tied it to that. So that's probably why they've got this language to allow municipalities to, because we don't have a choice over it. It's tied to this state law about smoking, but they can change it because that's just a regulation of this authority.
Except
So-
that the state question was so broad, so incredibly broad, that every bit of this is going to get challenged in court.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
that's,
so, whatever gets passed this session, when it
There's
gets,
likely.
Scheduled to be implemented November 1 or whatever the implementation date is, it'll be tied up for, I don't know, about a year
yeah,
in the court before we actually know what we have to follow. And then there'll be another legislative session.
yeah.
Just seems like we're 2 or 3 years out from actually knowing what the rules are for municipalities.
Well, as far as municipality language goes, Senate Bill 1030 will be the vehicle. There will be other
For this
medical
file.
marijuana, for our issues. There will be other medical marijuana bills. Another bit of language that was in there, and this is new language, I usually underline new language for my sake, but municipalities may follow their standard planning and zoning procedures to define which zones or districts would be appropriate for locating medical marijuana dispensaries, growers, and processors. Now, I thought this was interesting. Let's see. Yeah, nothing in this act shall prohibit local governments from adding additional local sales taxes to medical marijuana transactions. So that might be an opportunity down the road.
And then also get challenged.
So those are the top 5 bills that OML is really looking at, and I'll be helping out as well on those. But here's some dates to remember. February 26th, Enid Day at the Capitol, organized by our local chamber. And then if you've never been to the Northwest Oklahoma Legislative Reception, it's really a great reception. A lot of people there from all over Northwest Oklahoma.
Is that at 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock?
It's usually
Safely
like
to
5
say
or
probably
5:30
6.
or something.
Pardon me?
So it's usually like 5:30 or something.
Yeah.
It's really early.
Yeah.
And usually the governor's there to say a few words. In addition to that, we have a meeting schedule, I think Gerald has talked about, with our local legislators this Friday down here. And it's just, hour and a half of just going over those bills, a few more, and having those questions and discussions about any issue that you would want to be visiting about. So that's all I have for now, and I'll be back maybe 6 weeks or a month, or kind of give you a mid-session update. Any questions?
I have one question for you, Kurt.
Yeah.
What is the overall percentage rate for the oil and gas companies?
Up on the budget?
Yes, sir.
I do not know off the top of my head. It's significant. It's not half. It's not, I don't know the percentage. I would say, I'd be guessing if I said 10 or 15% of the total state's budget, but I don't know.
Has it raised? Because
Yeah.
annually it's raised all over the board for
It-
us.
It's gone from 2 to 5.
Yeah, the percentage of gross production tax, that was the big battle last year. That was the big 3/4 majority vote that Governor Fallon was pushing. She did it 3 times for the sake of teacher pay raises.
Okay.
And it was at 7% a few years ago. They lowered it to 2% for the first 36 months and then 7% after on a new well. The first 36 months was cheap. And they raised it. I can't recall how much they raised it. 5 for the first 36 months and then 7 after that, I believe. So that's why that significant increase is there. Plus, I would assume the oil production is steadily increasing, despite the price. So
the tax revenue that the state receives, does it go directly to the state and then it's dispersed out to each county, or does every
no,
county get it?
it goes to the state, and some of it's earmarked. Some of it's earmarked for water projects. You saw there's some language that's earmarked for a little bit of transportation that we might get a piece of if that bill were to go through. So the earmarks on gross production is probably pretty long, and there's probably a little discretionary revenue there that they can throw around.
I was just wondering if anyone has looked at, if each county has produced so much oil and tax revenue,
Yeah.
should they get that portion direct without going through the state
Yeah.
and then earmarked and divided?
Well, the Panhandle would probably have some of the nicest roads if that were the case.
That would eliminate a lot of our need,
Yeah, they were one of the big first plays, a long time ago, so.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Back to item 3, present an update on the Call Lake Water Supply Project. Chris?
Thank you, sir. Well, as you know, we've been progressing pretty rapidly down this path. We've got a couple of things that are really important that we need to talk about. The things that we want to talk about here is give you an update on where we're at, how we're doing on our easements, and then talk about delivered methods, which is basically, in my speak, acquisition strategy. Michael?
Thank you, Chris. Good evening, Commission, Mayor, City Manager. We'll start with an update on the overall program to remind you guys where we're at in the program. I think that most of the Commission members in the room could probably brief this slide instead of me. We have delivered it so many times and you guys are so familiar with the program, but nonetheless, we are in phase 3, which is the commencement of final design, taking the program from a 30% design phase to a 100% design, and the development of bid documents. We are also very involved in the land acquisition element of this program, and I'll give you an update on that in the next couple of slides. Same with the environmental permitting. So lots of activity commenced in October of last year and scheduled for completion in December of 2020.
Michael, go back to environmental permitting. Does that vary a lot from county to county?
There's a
Municipality to municipality?
not really, Mayor. There's we may find different issues from county to county, but there's a very prescribed process
Statewide?
federally that we follow. So the findings may be different even within a county, but the process itself is very well prescribed.
Thank you.
Speaking of environmental, completed studies and ongoing coordination continues. These are the major studies that we have to submit as part of the environmental clearance processes. Biological studies are 93% complete. The cultural resource studies are 85% complete. Hazardous material studies are at 95%. And all of these roll up into an environmental assessment. And as a result, that draft environmental assessment is about 80% complete. One of the items that is keeping us from completing all of these elements of the environmental assessment is access to property. We are still negotiating right of entry on a few, just a small handful of properties, I can count them on one hand, to give us access to do these biological studies, cultural resource studies, and hazardous material studies. Most of that involves just kind of walking their property and evaluating what we find on site. But there are some other areas that are potentially cultural sensitive areas where we would actually be doing more than just a shovel dig and actually trenching, looking for cultural artifacts and so forth. And so we're negotiating right of entry as we speak on some of those properties, and hopefully we'll get this element of the program wrapped up sooner than later.
And cultural resources now, what, is that looking for?
Cemeteries?
Yeah, lots of different things, archaeological findings, Native American cultural resources, historical
in
sites.
other words, the study's going to tell where all of those are at, and
If they are identified as part of your project footprint, then they will be identified in that study. There may not be any present.
okay.
You said there's only five or a few of the 70 properties where that's an issue that you believe, right?
Yeah, we've got on the raw water line approximately 225 different parcels, and there's, how many are we still waiting on, Shane? Less than five? Four.
Okay.
4 properties.
Thank you.
It's good questions. Speaking of property, I'll give you a brief overview or an update on the land acquisition process. Let's start with the big piece of the pie, the 59% chunk there in red. That identifies the amount of property owners that have yet to be notified through a notice of intent that the city intends to purchase the easement from them. Now let me back up just a second. 100% of the landowners that we anticipate will be impacted by this project have been notified multiple times that this project is ongoing and has the potential to impact them. What that 59% represents is the amount of those landowners that have actually received a written document that says we intend to buy an easement, or we would like to buy an easement from you. So we still have some more of those letters to get out.
Wait a minute now, you said they've been notified, but we haven't told them we're interested in buying an easement from.
We've told them that the project has the potential to impact their property.
Because not everybody that got a letter may not be
That's correct.
somebody we buy from.
Because as the design changes, the alignment moves, and they may or may not be impacted.
And it gives them notice that additional team members will be coming, talking to them specifically about easements.
59% just sounds like an awful large number.
It does sound like an awful large number. Everybody knows that we're coming. Those are the people, and we're doing this from the lake, coming this way. So as we work them off, we send out a new set of notices of intent, which is what we're talking about, and move on.
Michael, these are the landowners and not the tenants, correct?
That's correct. People that own the parcel of land. That's correct.
Absentee landowners
Well,
will make up a big part of
there
that.
are some of those that we have been tracking down or attempting to. Yes.
Is there a reason why we waited in this part of the game to get notifications and rights to easements and all that?
Well, what we wanted to do is get as final of an alignment as we could before we started bothering people and talking to them about easements and buying easements. You know, because the last thing I want to do is design something that I don't have an easement on, or acquire an easement and find out I got to go around somebody else and I need to go back to that person.
Okay, so if they reject it, wouldn't we have to do that anyway, or how would we be able to offset that?
I don't think I understand the question.
Okay, if they reject giving us a right to the land, easements, cultural, whatever it is,
Selling us an easement.
how would we be able to deal with that problem?
Well, that's something that, you know, we've talked about quite a bit in our team meetings, and what we've decided to do is we have a really good landman out there, and he's been amazingly successful at getting people to talk to him, with the exception of 4. And they've talked to, there's only one that hasn't really talked. And so if we get to that point where he can't do it standing around the tailgate of a pickup, we'll have a bridge team that they'll hand it off to that will be City of Enid people, and we'll take it from there.
And will that increase costs to the project if we have to reroute our lines and,
Quite possibly.
okay, so that will push us above the threshold of what we're looking at to do this project, right?
Potentially.
Potentially.
Okay.
Derwin, there's one nice thing about the pipeline. 96% of it will all be below the ground. It won't be above the ground like wind turbines. And it'll be hidden as opposed to having a windmill above the ground. So if they don't want you to come across their property and you go around it, this is how much money they will get. And farmers and landowners like money.
And that's what I'm looking at. I mean, just in case someone wanted to hold out, let's just be realistic. You know, someone could say, no, we don't want you on our property. We won't have anything to do with it.
That's their choice.
That's their choice.
And
Okay.
this is what they will get.
And that's why I'm asking, will this create an increase?
It has the
Oh.
potential.
Okay.
Sure.
But there's a lot that we can do before we get to that point. And, you know, there is one situation where I'm aware of that we talked about last week in our team, where we have one property owner who's not the best neighbor.
Okay.
So we can avoid him by going across his neighbor a little bit more and the neighbor to the south of him a little bit more and avoid him without actually adding any pipe. A little bit of rework on environmental, but small.
To me, the law of averages on 270 parcels, it's pretty high that you're gonna have some that complain.
Yeah, at 225.
They're gonna say no.
At 225 parcels, approximately, because we expect that number to vary as we finalize and tweak the final alignment, that could very easily happen.
And
And we'll deal with it.
these are things that I've been thinking about.
Mhm.
That's why I'm here. As far as obtaining the rights
Yes.
of easements and the payouts, do we plan on just dispersing a check for a lifetime, or are they gonna get some type of royalty behind this for a lifetime, or what?
Well, what we will do, and what we've decided to do, is we will pay a certain dollar per rod, which is a unit of measure for a pipeline, for the easement. And then we have a budget number that we use to pay for construction damages. And you'll recall, I said several times ago, acquiring the easements, it is the smallest technical risk, the smallest cost risk, and the largest schedule risk. Of all the things that can go wrong, that one can blow the schedule the fastest. But, you know, to date, we've been fairly lucky and happy with what we've seen.
Well, I'd like to be clear too, that we've really only been on this for about 2 months, since December. I believe we briefed before, it was at least a 12 to 15 month process. We know there'll be some challenges, but we've been at this about 2 months. And you'll remember about 2 months ago, we had the Smith Roberts land guy in here, Steve, and he's the guy out. And so I'm encouraged. I mean, we're gonna be, every time we come, we're gonna be updating that number. So I'm expecting the green piece of pie is gonna continue to get bigger. And as we do think there are issues, we want to bring those to your attention, but we'll want to work that through the bridge team that he referred to, which is basically another effort to work through the issue. There's options like he talked about. There's potential options where there can be workarounds. There's options to have other folks approach them. There's still a lot of options. So I think we're early in the process, and so I want to make sure that's clear to everybody. We're not already 15 months down the road and only at 3%, because that would definitely be a problem.
Your 3% has already come up from 2%.
Yes, it has.
It's a 50% increase.
Got some more Friday.
Yeah. And actually, the consent items that are in the future agenda, they're going to start getting longer and longer and longer, because those are starting to drop. And you have to be patient. You truly have to be patient. We're talking about people who have lived on this land, farmed this land for generations. So you have to treat them with respect and professionally. It's their land. Okay?
So what that also, what this pie chart also entails is the number of people that have agreed to receive offers, the number of offers that are sitting on kitchen tables right now being evaluated, and then the number of offers that have been accepted by the landowners. And I think there's also, I've seen this on multiple other projects, there's an element of momentum that starts to build as well. And so we'll see these colors change in size and ratio in future briefing updates.
Okay. Gerald, would you like to start this one off?
Yes, I would. As we go through this project, we all know it's a difficult project. It's the biggest project in our history. And so every opportunity that we have to examine more in depth, in this case a delivery method, we want to do that. Or if it's financing methods or what have you. One of the things that early on we determined that we were going to follow a traditional design bid build process, which is what we're in. We're at 30%. Typically with design bid build you go to 100%. Get bids and specs and you send them out for bid. You qualify your bidders ideally before, or certainly after, and then you go with the lowest bid. And so we all know that many times, we know the budget's very important here. And so any tool that we can use to help us reduce financial uncertainty, we want to bring it to you for consideration. The tool we're going to talk about right now is the Construction Manager at Risk tool. That's a possible method we can look at that's allowed for complex projects like this that involve cost containment and schedules and risk, that allows us to transfer some risk to the contractor, brings the contractor on board. This would be a very large company that builds projects like this all over the nation, maybe the international world, to come in here and work directly with our design firm to move forward. So before I get too far ahead, they're going to discuss that some more. It is just a possibility. I think there's a lot of pros to it, and we're going to talk about those, and we want to answer your questions and see what you think about this as a possible approach.
Okay. What we're talking about now is our acquisition strategy. Like Gerald said, we started this design bid build with our acquisition strategy, spread the schedule risk and accept a little more management, doing it the way we had planned with multiple final design firms. What Gerald asked us a couple weeks ago was, how can I know and control cost? How can I know cost certainty sooner, and how can we control it? The one tool that is clearly available to us is Construction Manager at Risk. And so we took a detailed look at the program that we've got based on that delivery method or acquisition strategy, and here's what we came up with. Michael?
Thank you, Chris and Gerald. And before we get into the weeds here too detailed, I just want, I think in the effort of full transparency, our company really doesn't have a horse in the race here. We're your program manager, we're your consultant, and we're very comfortable with where this program is at today. We think that we are right where we intended we would be from a budgeting standpoint, from a schedule standpoint, and from a delivery method. But the city manager did ask a good question. How can I know more about the cost, have more certainty in the cost, and have that certainty a little bit sooner? And that lends itself toward a different project delivery method than what we currently have planned, which is design bid build. That different method is Construction Manager at Risk, or CMAR. And just real simply here, I want to try to explain some of the differences between the current delivery method, which is a traditional design bid build, versus CMAR. You'll see this is where we're at right now in our traditional delivery method, and you'll see that the program cost and its contingency is your budget. That's what we have presented for over a year now. That's the decisions we made and the phasing options that we made. That is the program cost with some contingency. Under that traditional delivery method, the city maintains majority of the construction risk and the budget's risk, the cost estimates risk, up until not only bid day, but until the project is built. There are construction risk and cost risks that occur after bids are opened. Those are called change orders. I'm sure you guys are familiar with that terminology.
Can you convert that green figure to dollars, please?
That's a tough call right now on the fly, but it's a
Somehow
majority.
you came up with the green.
I think it represents pretty equally there the overall program cost, and what percentage of that cost is your risk versus their risk under the current delivery method. Without putting a number on it, just graphically,
Okay,
it's the majority.
fair enough.
Now, if we look at a different delivery method like CMAR, what we're talking about there is going through a selection process based on qualifications to bring on another project partner who has demonstrated experience in constructing programs of this magnitude, albeit in the United States or all over the world. Having that level of experience or added to the team brings a new element of potential cost savings, or Gerald's original intent with the question, confirmation of the engineer's cost estimate, and earlier. Now, in order to do that, to get that partner and to transfer that risk, there are some additional fees associated with that. And in the grand scheme of things, they're relatively small on a program of this magnitude, and they are negotiable. They are just estimates at this point. And what you're buying with that fee is a transfer of risk, because that contractor will evaluate our design and update the cost opinion that we have developed right now based on 30% complete design, and they will do that again at a 60% complete design milestone. And at that point, we would encourage them to lock in that cost estimate as their guaranteed maximum price to deliver the project. And certainly that would occur a lot sooner than what is anticipated to occur sometime early next year under the traditional method.
What type of fee are we looking at in order to be able to get that type of issue?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that fee can be expanded in really 3 different phases for discussion's sake. We don't want to speculate on how much it's going to cost today, because we may be sitting down at the table with construction managers negotiating that fee at some point in the near future, should you guys decide to move forward. So if you'll bear with me.
I got you.
3 elements of cost, I think, that are worth discussing. One is to gain their opinion of our current cost estimate. There's some value in that, regardless of whether or not you deliver this under a different method. That updated cost opinion from an independent third party who actually builds these and would be responsible for building this one. There's a lot of value in that. That could be on the order of a couple $100,000, $250,000, something like that. And again, that's just a ballpark number. We could come in, much more favorably than that. The next element of cost would be to work with the engineer to go from a 30% design to a 60% design, and for them to develop that guaranteed maximum price. That could also range from another $250,000 to $500,000 ballpark number, Jonathan.
Gotcha.
But there are additional costs that you would incur throughout the construction phase, the completion of design from 60 to 100, and the construction phase. And again, just ballparking some numbers here. Overall, I think you can expect the fees to be about 1% of the total project cost.
Now, in terms of control, once we sign on to that, they're going to be looking for cost savings. Do we lose the ability in order?
I'm so glad you asked that question.
Well, I'm glad I could throw the note to you.
I'm really glad you asked that question, because that's why we're talking about CMAR as opposed to some other non-traditional methods like design build or progressive design build. Under the CMAR approach, the city will have basically 2 contracts for delivery of this work. They'll have a contract with us, the engineer, and they'll have a contract with the CMAR contractor, the construction manager. And our role is to ensure that the design is completed according to your specifications, your design criteria, your sizing, and your standard of care, your standard of quality that you anticipated. Now, that's not to say that there might be some opportunities for change. There might be some opportunities for trade-offs. There might be opportunities to potentially reduce cost. Perhaps. I don't want to guarantee that. But
No, we don't talk about that.
we don't talk about reduced cost a whole lot.
Not
but,
right now.
But there's opportunities if we're willing to accept some trade-offs.
Okay.
And that's one of the values I think that the city manager recognized as part of this delivery method. And that's why he asked us to take a look at it in more detail and for us to thus report it back to you guys.
We know Michael's conservative, so I anticipate that his estimates are conservative as well.
Did he answer your question?
Yes, sir, he did. Thank you.
The part that is attractive is we now have the guy who's got to build it and the guy who's designing it, and they have to work together with us through the design process. So we've got a team working together to meet our needs and our requirements. And that's really one of the better parts of this delivery method.
That's, I think, all of the path forward under this method right here. I showed it earlier on the We Are Here slide. Path forward would be to continue with final design, producing bid documents, and then actually bid these projects out at some point in 2020. The path forward on the CMAR delivery method would be to call a brief timeout. There will be a minor schedule impact to solicit construction managers through a request for qualifications process, evaluate those qualifications, and begin contracting for that first phase, which would be an updated cost opinion. And then if things go well through that cost opinion update, then an amendment to their contract to generate a guaranteed maximum price. And then, basically what that means for the commission is that that's a couple of off-ramps in the event that you're not real comfortable with some of the cost estimates that come in, or we lose some confidence in the contractor, or lots of things could happen. Material prices could change. There's just a couple of different off-ramps there at the 30% and the 60% milestone before you commit to actually building the project.
I'm glad you brought up material cost. The course of the past 6 to 8 months, we've seen some major fluctuations in steel. Anywhere from 5 to 8%, in the increase in cost and in terms of availability. So in terms of cost, as far as what our original mark was supposed to be, as well as any potential pushing of schedule based on the availability of American steel, do you foresee any major impacts in cost or scheduling based on that?
Impacts, I'm not real sure. I can tell you what I see. I see that through this method, if we choose to go to the 60% and we get that guaranteed maximum price, we will know the health of this program in 2019. You will know where we're at. If we make that last step and award a construction contract to this construction manager, the first thing he's going to do is go buy all the materials. So, and he has the contacts in industry already, because he does this worldwide. And there are a lot of firms that do this worldwide, nationwide and worldwide. And just, he'll have worked it when it looks good, if we're comfortable with him, if we have trust and we have a good teaming and we get to a number that we can live with, the minute we sign that contract, he's going to order the pipe.
So essentially, we won't know the answer to that question until we get some type of assurance from an individual or
if we choose to go down this path, you'll get a pretty good idea when we get that first independent cost estimate of our 30% design.
Okay.
You'll know how close we are.
He's gonna buy that material with the city of Enid money.
Yes, he is.
He's not gonna have that kind of money.
When we sign a construction contract at 60% with a guaranteed maximum price, if we can cash flow it, he'll buy it. And I think we can.
So it's city of Enid money that's buying it.
Yes.
And this is through CMAR?
Yes.
Okay.
But the CMAR isn't actually bidding on the overall project. I mean, in other words, we're gonna talk to a number of firms, I guess, that do this kind of work. But they don't actually bid on the overall project. We select them based on qualifications, not on a bid, right?
Correct. We select them based on qualifications with the intent that if they get to a guaranteed maximum price and they accept that construction risk, and it moves over to the contractor, then we sign a construction contract with him.
Is there any possibility of getting an overall contractor to bid on the whole project?
This gets you that.
Well,
And then,
not really.
Well, he jumps on it and he subcontracts
Yeah.
from then.
Yeah, that's
Yes, it
exactly
does.
right. So I think what you're after is the competition factor.
Yeah.
And the element of competition and where you
Okay.
get that. The construction manager is selected based off of qualifications. And that construction manager will perform some portion of the construction. So that's not bid, Ron. However, an overwhelmingly larger percentage of the work will be bid by subcontractors under an open book process that will be evaluated by the city and Garver to evaluate and make sure that we're complying with Oklahoma bidding requirements for that subcontracted work.
but they're bidding to the construction manager.
But they're bidding to perform work for that construction manager. But it's an open book bidding, a public bidding process.
I didn't hear what Jonathan said.
Essentially, what he summarized is that we're basically going to get an individual. It's basically getting a project manager who's going to manage, and he's going to subcontract the different aspects of the contract. We just now have a single point of contact to go to say, hey, look where we are in the process, where we're at, how far along we are.
That's exactly right. I had one caveat to that, and that is that they will self-perform some of the work.
Okay.
They will do some of the construction. They have experience.
What the mayor said a little while ago was city of Enid money that's going to be buying all this stuff that's bought in advance, earlier in the program than it would be otherwise. Why couldn't we do that ourselves? Why do we need a CMAR to do that?
We don't. We're already in the current method. We are pushing to that decision on pipe material and entering into contracts with manufacturers of pipe in the summer of this year. When he takes on that responsibility, he also takes on the responsibility of managing the logistics and the delivery of that pipe based on the construction schedule and the lay procedures that his subs or himself are planning on. So that management of that effort, he takes that on. He has to worry about getting the right pipe in the right place at the right time.
So,
Go ahead.
So, and we wouldn't be worried about that?
Chris,
Not
is
really.
he
I mean,
responsible
go ahead.
for the warranty
Yes.
of it?
Yes.
So the warranty falls on them.
The maintenance bond and the performance.
And once the project is complete, do we gain power of the warranty? Do we receive I'm looking at, in the construction, dealing with construction, a pipe blows out. They have the warranty. 10 years after the project is done, pipe blows out. Are we able to go back to them and say, hey, we need to repair this, or does that fall on us?
Typically, that falls on you, unless you want to buy a 10-year warranty.
What is the normal warranty on something like that?
Usually, we would require a 2-year maintenance bond,
Yeah.
performance bond on something like this. But recall, that's where maintaining quality in the type of material that we're specifying goes a long way.
Right, and the pipe could be the best pipe,
Yeah.
but we gotta make sure we have the best welders.
Yeah, that's
You know
well,
what I mean? Because
and
men are
actually-
putting this together. Let's be real about it.
Actually, in 2013, we laid a piece of pipe out east of town, a 20-inch line, and the installation in a couple of spots wasn't quite up to snuff, and we ended up with blowouts. And we called them up, you come fix this, and they did.
Because it's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of pressure. 70 miles worth.
And that's where Jonathan asked the question about quality and maintaining quality and the specifications and the bedding requirements and the pipe thickness. And, we've got to hang on to that. Regardless of which delivery method, we've got to hang on to that so that we can preserve the lifespan of that pipe. And that it's beyond pipe, too. It's the water treatment plant equipment, it's the pumps, the intake, it's not we always talk about the pipe because it's kind of the big thing that always gets brought up, but there's a lot of elements of quality that have to be maintained. And even though the contractor may be pre-purchasing that equipment, they are responsible for that equipment, whether it be a water treatment plant clarifier, filter, an ozone system, or a pipe. They're responsible for it until it is constructed according to plans and specifications, tested, and demonstrates that it meets the performance criteria that we've established. Once that happens, then they take over typically a 2-year period where they're still responsible for it. But at some point, the city owns it, and they take over the operation and maintenance responsibility for it. You can buy longer warranties, but it's just more cost.
It's how we do them today.
Yeah, because we're dealing with a lot of mechanical phases, which
Yes.
you're talking about. I mean, even looking at the electrical part of it alone, you know, if something was to burn up, a pump or something was to burn up, does the warranty factor, do they control that, or is that on us?
Well, we built a brand new wastewater treatment plant for Lou, and it's performed pretty good. Once we got it lined up and operating, it has really performed real well. Real good. So it's not like we haven't done it before.
These are great questions. I mean, you're
We love
clearly
it.
concerned about the assets is where we want you guys thinking. And that's where the importance of design criteria, specifications, standard operating procedures, commissioning, all comes into play to preserve that life expectancy.
Michael, is there a chance that we'll have a pipe yard every 9 miles between here and Ponca City?
Pretty close. Yeah, pretty close.
You mean a staging area?
Pipe yard, yes.
During
Tomato,
construction?
Tomato, tomato.
The big takeaway, though, for people that might be watching that aren't real familiar with this, the big takeaway about this is that the construction manager at risk method, when they get to a certain point where they can tell us what they think, what they're pretty sure it's gonna cost, that the guaranteed maximum price that he's talking about means that if it goes over that price, we are not responsible for that. They are responsible for that. I think that
Well, it
point
depends.
is pretty important to.
It depends on why it goes over.
Well, but,
Yeah.
That's
I
the
mean, but that's
important
the
part.
general, I'm just trying to explain what the basic concept of a construction
I just mean, the
manager
whole
risk
thing is
means.
in the details. It's
Yes,
it's
Right.
the reasons in, I mean, that's an all lovely
That would
idea,
be the
but
biggest reason to use it, would be the biggest benefit to us.
right, and it all seems like it seems like an idea that merits some additional exploration, but at this point, I mean, as a concept, it's worth talking about, but there's so many of the details that make it, I mean, it's a little bit, I mean, it's great we're talking about it, it's worth looking at in my mind, but at the moment, there are so many questions about, that are way more in the weeds than we can cover tonight, because we just don't know what an agreement would look like, that make it, I mean, maybe, is kind of what it feels like. I mean, the other, my question for you was, I was looking back at the pitch you made to us a couple, 3 years ago when we hired you for this level, for this level of engineering. And, you know, we got these lovely 100-page pitches from you and Black and Beach and Burns McDonnell and Guernsey and a couple of 3 others. And in part, there were a couple projects that you folks listed as being involved in that were done in this construction manager at risk methodology. Lake Texoma to Wiley Pipeline and Ward County Water Transmission System. And I'm sure there are lots of others, but just when I pull it up, those are the 2 that pop up. Talk to me a little bit on the projects that you folks have been involved in. It looks like what gets touted in your proposal, and by the way, everybody else's, is that some of these CMAR projects can be done faster, but that the cost is 10% higher. Or is that?
Yeah. Well, and those projects that you referenced are projects that were led by our subconsultant, Friesen Nichols, to give
Right.
them credit for those projects.
I mean, the pitch was Garver and Friesen Nichols.
Right, and we're leading other CMAR projects in addition to those. But you're correct. There is a potential to reduce schedule as a part of this project. One example of that might be the way we design concrete walls. You know, we may have a certain methodology that we want the contractor to build a concrete wall this way. And if contractor sits down with us early and says, hey, we can do that, but we're really good at providing you the same quality of concrete wall if you'll let us build it this way. Mm-hmm. And if you'll let us build it this way, we can do it 60 days quicker. And so those are the kind of trade-offs that we're talking about where, hey, we didn't sacrifice any quality, but we learned that this contractor's more apt to build faster this way, and so we're going to let them do that. So there are some opportunities to accelerate schedule in that way. The other way to accelerate schedule is to change design criteria, and we don't want to do that. And sometimes emergency projects are delivered under a CMAR method because design criteria is not as critical
Okay.
because it's an emergency.
Okay. So that's part of the rationale for. Okay.
Yeah.
And then,
And before I lose this thought,
Yeah.
though, you brought up a very good point, Ben, about the details. It's all in the details. And I think if you had somebody in here to look at that 30% cost opinion, those details get worked out at that 60% GMP step, the guaranteed maximum price step, where we identify what risk are we going to transfer and therefore pay for in their fee, and what risk are going to sit up here in this contingency bucket.
and how big that contingency
And how
bucket
big
then
that
is.
contingency
That's-
bucket is, and what happens to that contingency if it's not all
I mean,
spent.
if the contingency bucket's 50 million, then the guaranteed maximum price doesn't give me that much.
Depending upon what kind of
Price certainty
what kind
here.
of restrictions you put on the contingency bucket.
Yeah, but we
How
have that
hard is
Sure,
it
I
to
mean,
get in?
if we can split the contingency,
details.
then maybe and all that, but is there, I mean, before we get too deeper into this, is there an example agreement that we can even look at? I mean, I'm
Oh,
just
yeah.
trying to wrap my head around
Absolutely.
how one of these gets put together, and I'm sure it's some god-awful long thing, but I like that, that's fine.
Of course.
But can we
Absolutely.
get one of those circulated just to kind of get some basis?
We'll work through your city attorney and get you a copy of some of
Ben,
it.
if you build it quicker and it adds 10% to the cost, that's $31 million more dollars.
Well, that's the thing, but that's part of what the pitch is with all these engineering companies is we worked with the CMR, and when we did this CMR project, by the way, it came in a lot faster, also came in a little bit high. So, you know, I'm more concerned about paying for it, which is
We all
my
are.
concern.
That's
Yeah.
$310 million.
Yeah.
There's a soul in this room that isn't concerned with it.
I wish it was $310 million. I hope it's $310 million. I don't think it's gonna be.
I assume at this point the thought process is the sooner we can, if we're going to go this route, the sooner that we can engage with the potential companies, is the more beneficial it's going to be for us in order to be able to move.
Gotcha.
Okay.
I'm sticky.
Well, and part of that is we're talking about buying steel as early as this summer. That worries me a little bit. I would like at some point, as we get closer
Yes.
to that, somebody smarter than me to explain why this summer or this fall or next spring or when the right time, based on some economic projection, because the price of steel's been absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Then it's gonna be something for the next 30 years. That's life.
No, but Bill, I mean, when we spend $80 million on steel, or when we buy 70 some odd miles of pipe, can matter a lot. Whether it's this summer or this fall, even can make a big enough difference that
And
put that on the list to educate me on.
understand. Oh, absolutely. And understand, for us to get to the point where we can provide this body information to make decisions and give them time to think about it, I've got to drive the team
Yeah.
to get that data put together. So, it's that kind of thing that I'm doing as the guy who's responsible for executing this program, is I keep driving.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that if we can start that conversation in the middle of the summer, we will have the time we need, and we'll be able to strategically make that happen.
Here's why I wanted to have this discussion right now. I believe there's a lot of merits in this approach. I think you're ultimately going to determine which way or if we're going to use this. Really, I guess you're going to determine if we're going to use this, because otherwise we'll just stay on the path we're on. We've talked about cost. You even see up there, we talked about 50 million in contingency. I don't want people to lose sight of, if any of us, from me to Chris, any of the staff thought that we would add cost by doing this approach, we would not be talking about it here today. Does it have the potential to do that? Yes, it does. Because as you heard, possible fee estimates of $500,750,000 to go from 30 to 60, get an independent cost opinion at 30%, which we could just start with that right there. Whatever that costs, if we don't like that, don't think it's going to work, drop it. I think that would be premature at that point. I don't think we're going to be, I think we're going to verify that we're close, or at least going to reconcile. Going to 60%, the value comes from somebody that knows how to do this. Somebody that's done this before, various projects. And I think we all know on a project this size, we can have the best engineers in the world, and we do. But until you get it out there and bid it, we've found out times before, that's when you really find out what it's cost. Well, with this project, we've had a very high degree of of scrutiny on the project, and I'm very comfortable with the cost we're at. But anything that could add more certainty, I think we'd have to look at. And I guess what I'm getting at is on that contingency, keep in mind, whatever that is, and whatever the construction cost is, we're gonna add into all the other engineer costs, and we're looking at the same number. If that number's higher than what we can deliver it now, we're gonna offer him, whether that's 30% or 60%. And so you would say, well, hey, we just added $750,000 to it. We're gonna offer him to 60. I could see you saying that. What I'm gonna say is, we got contingency in the program already. So I'm gonna reach right back to you, Michael and Chris, and say, guess what? You've always told me we're gonna use the contingency. I just used some of it for you to verify that we may have an issue right now, this year, until I wait until next year when the bids are delivered and we find out, oh gosh, it's whatever, 10% over, or 10 million over, 50 million over.
Or under.
Because we know what happens then. You reject the bid, you have to re-engineer, you have to start it, and that takes time. Time is of the essence, as we know. So I think there's a lot of value. I think it's a possible way to go. This is the exact time we should be looking at it, when we're just at 30% going forward. I want to make sure we get you all the information that you need and must have to make this decision. So I know you'd like a copy of the contract, and Alyssa, I think I saw you taking a note. Hopefully, if you didn't, if you would, put it in the minutes for me, because we want to get that to you.
Yeah,
Because we want you to have time, and I'd like to bring it back next time, but if that's not enough time, and we can bring it back soon. If we're going to go this route, we probably need to.
Well, what would get brought back even? I mean, we wouldn't be hiring somebody next time. It would be
An
sending out
action
an
item.
RFP, or what's the?
Deciding
No.
if we're gonna do this.
An action item to pursue or to authorize or use the CMAR approach. That's what I think. So, I mean, we'd have to
Well,
develop
but it
that
feels
item.
like that what we're talking about is we don't have to decide whether we use the CMAR approach. I mean, whether call it an off-ramp or call it deciding later. I mean, there is some action that would have to be taken in terms of finding a company to do it, and presumably we'd be seeking multiple proposals, and that would be the action item.
Allow me to address that.
Yeah.
That would be what we did when we solicited proposals and qualifications for the final design consultants. That would be the same process.
Okay.
We didn't come to you with that. We came to you with the answer. We did this, here's what we think the answer is. And then we had a conversation, and we brought people for you to interview. So it would be that kind of process. We're comfortable with that process.
Well, let me follow up too, because we may very well do that, but if we're going to pursue this approach, I want to know that you guys support pursuing that approach.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's no need for us to go down that path.
When do you need to know?
Well, soon, because whether we come
When do
back
you
with an
need to
action
know?
item,
When do you need
well,
to
to me,
know?
I think we could probably figure out by the next meeting, but that may not be enough time if you need more information. We can certainly get a contract.
Well, no, it's
in that
just,
time.
we're not gonna know, I mean, I'm not going to be comfortable saying whether I think this is a good idea or not until we have proposals from people who wanna do it. And so, yeah, let's go get the proposals.
Well, there
Costs
you
us
go.
nothing to go get the proposals,
There's
right?
your action item.
I mean, that's what I mean, that's the point where.
I can
but
make
when we
that
have-
happen.
When
I
we
can
have
make that
half a
happen.
dozen proposals or however many people
Yes.
submit that are qualified, and that we have the,
Yes.
100-page glossy, colorful
Yeah, it won't be that many
presentations,
pages.
whatever it is.
We're not knowing, we're not gonna know until we get the.
I guess the
Right, but
question-
that's when-
I guess the question is, do we need to have an action item just for them to go out to go pursue and get?
All I need is a city manager to say, Chris, make it happen.
Just seems like we want that to happen quicker.
Yes.
We're not taking any
Yes.
action tonight, there's nothing on the agenda, we can't do anything tonight.
Well,
I just,
absolutely. I'm
Right.
not suggesting that we
Right.
take action tonight.
just saying it for the newspaper.
Right.
Just,
You know, the middle of the summer is 6 months away.
I don't
Yes,
know.
I
That's
do.
probably a question I probably would ask Carol. If we don't need anything, fine. But I guess at a minimum, you would need to know. We've talked about potentially there's a delay.
mhm.
I'm hearing it's probably 3 to 6 months. I'm thinking it's probably minimal, because in the end on this approach, I think we'd make up time. So we would want you to know that. I don't know. If we don't need an action item, I'll be glad to tell him. He's ready to go upstairs right now and get busy on our proposals. I think it's the way, I think we need to look at it, and we need to come back and get that cost opinion, and I think we probably need to go to 60%, and if that doesn't look good, then I think we've discovered that we have probably bigger problems in the delivery method.
Mhm.
You know, this program is the largest we've done. It's very complex. There are a lot of moving parts that have to integrate. We owe it to the people who pay the taxes to turn every stone over. And with a little bit of an investment, and I think, like I said, I think his number's conservative.
Chris, on what date do you project we'll be at 60% design?
September, October
It's 2019.
of this year. It depends on how long it takes us to do get those selected and get the decision and get them on contract. You know, that's easy, a 3-month process. But we'll know the health of the program in 2019.
Well, I think at this point, I'm just going to direct Chris to go ahead and pursue this method. And then we'll come back to you as soon whenever we get results.
And don't be surprised if you get a lot of unsolicited proposals in your inbox. If you'll send them to me, I'll take care of them.
We have your email.
Well, you might got them too.
Just to
Does it
clarify,
have to be related to this project?
There's no telling.
Everything? Yeah.
There's no
hey,
telling.
just to be clear, if you have issues, send them to me.
Yes.
There's not going to be issues on this. I'll be glad to tell people what we're doing. The newspaper's going to tell people what we're doing. We're going to be
That's how we get the
proactively
bids,
communicating
newspaper.
what we're doing. There will be questions about what are you doing.
Yes.
So we're going to be working about that, and we can talk about that probably upstairs. We have an action item for that tonight.
I think it's a good approach to go that way.
I do too.
Pursue it.
We'll certainly find out. We'll have facts that you can look at.
Any other questions? Thank you.
We are adjourned. We'll meet upstairs at 6:30.
Thank you for watching the Enid City Commission study session. All meetings are broadcast on local cable channel 12 and in high definition on channel 112. In addition, the study session is live streamed on the web at enidtv.org. If you have any questions or comments regarding this broadcast, please visit the City of Enid website at enid.org.